Right, hello. How is everyone doing with everything going on in the world? Hoping I can take your mind off things a bit as we talk about sleep. If you're having trouble hearing me with this microphone, please let me know. But I figured right now it's a good adjustment. So first of all, I apologize for not having very many posts over the past week. As I'm sure it's been with you guys, it has been a crazy week. First of all, I wasn't feeling well, so lacking energy. And then on top of it, as I coach volleyball, I mentioned that, and I help run tournaments. So I've been putting out fires with our tournaments because we've had to cancel them. So now I am back. I am healthy. You'll see I have an adjustment. I'm in a different room. My dad is staying with us for a bit. He was in Boston. He was a bartender in Boston, and he said people were not being responsible. And he is going to be moving to New Mexico. He was supposed to be moving a couple weeks from now, and so he has chosen to leave early. He's going to be staying with us for a couple weeks. So my office is now in my bedroom for now. But it's all good. We are here. We are so far healthy and safe. So I hope you all are doing the same. And good luck to you parents with your children at home. You can make it. All right, so today we are going to be talking about we're recapping what I've been talking about over the past 5 weeks. Over the past 5 weeks, we have talked about the 5 elements of healthy sleep habits as proposed by Dr. Mark Weisbluth in his book, Healthy Sleep Habits, Happy Child. So I'm going to just kind of briefly recap the important takeaways from each of those elements, and then I'm going to provide a list of the main takeaways just by looking at all of those elements combined. So after today's recap, next week we are going to start diving into the science of sleep, and I'm really excited about that. Understanding the science of sleep, first of all, is kind of a fascinating topic, in my opinion. And then it also helps you understand why these elements are important. I've already touched on it a little bit, but it will help you understand why things such as duration of sleep, sleep regularity, why the timing, why naps, why are all these things important. Before I dive into that though, I just want to introduce myself for those of you who do not know who I am. I am Megan Robert. I am owner of After the Stork. I am a child sleep coach, a postpartum doula, and a former nanny. I have been working with children since I was the age of 12. I was a nanny for 5 years. In 2015, I started working as a postpartum doula, discovered this line of child sleep coaching. So my main focus now is to help parents and families get the best that they need. If you would like more information on what that entails and what that looks like, I have a document of my step-by-step process of working together. You can get that at afterthestorksleep.com/what is entailed. Now, before we dive into everything, I do need to provide a disclaimer. I am not a medical professional. I help families from a behavioral perspective. So these videos and all of the free documents that I provide, they're for educational and informational purposes only. The information contained within these resources are not intended as and shall not be understood or construed as medical advice or substitute of medical advice. They are meant to promote the general understanding of child sleep development for parents and anyone who works with younger children. So for any medical issues or concerns, please consult your pediatrician or other healthcare provider. If your child snores or mouth breathes, reach out to your pediatrician, make sure that they are aware, your pediatrician, an ENT, sleep specialist, someone, if this is a regular thing, as that could be preventing your child from sleeping well, but that is not my area of expertise. My area of expertise is how to help you with behavioral issues. Hi, Katie. So now we're going to dive into a recap of, oh shoot, I forgot I was going to have Instagram on this too. Give me just one moment. We've got to add Instagram on here. I'm just getting used to this whole live thing. Okay. Put this right there. Hi Instagram, I forgot to go live here. So we are just about to jump into the recap of the 5 elements of sleep. So what we've been talking about over the past 5 weeks. So the first element of sleep that I talked about was sleep duration. There are several different organizations out there that provide you with suggested ranges of sleep for your child based on age. I suggest you go there. I'm not going to dive into all that again. You can either look at my past video from February 11th, or you can look into, go to CDC, WebMD, AAP, NSF, so AAP, American Association of Pediatrics, and then National Sleep Foundation, NSF. So these are great resources for you to get an idea of how much sleep your child actually needs. But something to keep in mind is that for newborns, biology heavily drives sleep. So sleep is not expected to be organized. It's all over the place. There is a certain range of sleep that we want over time, but just if you follow your child's lead and you're attuned with when your child is tired, then your child is going to sleep when they need to. Now for older children who are about 16 weeks and older, their circadian rhythm is becoming more developed. And as that happens, habits form. And so we and the habits that we create for our children can heavily impact sleep duration. So be in tune with what your child needs, and be aware of those habits that might be preventing them from getting the sleep that they need, or the habits that might help them get enough sleep throughout the night. The second element of sleep is sleep regularity. So when I talked about this, I mostly touched on bedtime, but overall, just to be clear, sleeping regularly daily. So sleeping when they need to nap, sleeping when they need to go to bed. And depending on their age, we talked about the timing of sleep, and we'll touch on that again here in this video, but a regular timing of sleep, a regular schedule that is appropriate for your child's age and individually. But we basically touched on bedtime when I discussed the regularity of sleep. If your child is younger and napping, the timing of bedtime should be around the same time every night. However, it might fluctuate 30 to 60 minutes earlier based on what their day is like. So if naps were not great, if there was a high level of activity throughout the day, and most importantly, if your child seems a little off between the hours of 4 to 5. So your child's behavior and temperament in the afternoon can be a good sign of whether or not you need to provide an earlier bedtime. Now for children who are not napping, a regular bedtime that does not fluctuate is generally more beneficial than adjusting based on the day. So when I did discuss that, I know that there are families out there where some of you, both parents work, or the commute to work is long, you're not able to pick your child up in time for daycare. There just might be something that causes bedtime to never be early or rarely be early. If this is your life, first of all, show yourself some grace. Do what you can to make adjustments. So if you're rushing home and making dinner, can the child care provider give dinner before you pick up your child? So that's one less thing you have to do. Does bath time have to be part of the bedtime routine? Can your child have bath time earlier in the day and then it not be part of bedtime routine so you have a shorter amount of time of things to get through before bedtime? So if that is you, something to keep in mind as well is that it is better for your child to have a regular bedtime instead of a bedtime that fluctuates frequently. So you might be rushing home trying to get your child to bed early. If this is you and you normally you're not always able to get your child to bed early and it's just all over the place, stick with a regular bedtime, sometime hopefully prior to 9, generally based on your child's age, somewhere before 7 if you can. But again, show yourself some grace and just try to provide your child with a regular bedtime. And in case you want the video on that specifically, that was on February 18th. The third element of sleep, healthy sleep habits that I provided for children is sleep consolidation. That video was on February 25th. Sleep consolidation is really important. This means sleep consolidation. This means that sleep is uninterrupted. Sleep is continuous, and there is nothing that is causing awakenings that are abnormal. The opposite of that would be sleep fragmentation. This is when your child or even an adult has full awakenings, full arousals in the middle of the night, between naps, and sometimes it can be abnormal shifts between sleep cycles towards lighter sleep. So one thing that is normal are these natural arousals that happen between sleep cycles. It is normal that everyone wakes a couple times throughout the night. We might not remember it, or maybe it's a time when you shift how you're sleeping, you put your pillow to the cooler side, you grab a drink of water, you use the restroom, whatever the case may be. This is normal. Every 2 to 3 hours, every time you've completed a full sleep cycle, we go into deep sleep, we have light sleep, deep sleep, and then we wake. So it is normal for everyone to wake up a couple times a night. I'm being very repetitive for a reason, because I want you to understand that your child might be waking at night and might make noises in between those wakings, and that's normal. When this becomes an issue is if a child is not able to transition smoothly between those sleep cycles and is requiring something external to help them fall asleep. If this is your child, if this is something that's happening frequently, your child is not getting consolidated sleep. So this is important to hear, that we want to make sure we're not confusing these arousals from hunger. These arousals are due to brain activity and not due to hunger. Now, that's not to say that some wakings for your child are not hunger. We have to look at your child's age, them individually, what your pediatrician has suggested. Generally, for newborns, yes, they need to eat every few hours. Around 6 weeks, they start to go 0 to 3 night feedings, depending on the child. They usually taper off around 4 to 6 weeks to where there's 1 to 2 feedings, and then somewhere between 6 to 9 months. Naturally, if a child's able to sleep on their own, I see them tapering off 0 to 1, and by 9 months, generally, the night feedings disappear. Now, every child is different. Keep that in mind. Every child is different. You have to look at your individual child. What is suggested by your pediatrician? Is your child gaining weight appropriately? Things like that. But in general, if your child is waking frequently at night and requiring your assistance to fall back asleep, they are having that fragmented sleep instead of consolidated sleep. And having the same duration of sleep that is consolidated versus fragmented, please note they are not equal. So this is why we want to look at all 5 elements of sleep. Sleep duration is important, but if it is fragmented sleep, it is not going to be good quality sleep like sleep consolidation. Now, another time that your child might wake is due to what we call protective arousals. Protective arousals are awakenings by the brain to prevent asphyxiation. So this means that your child, or this is also for adults, this means that our body, our brain, wakes us in order to make sure that we breathe, in order to make sure that we live and we stay alive. So for newborns, this is necessary. This has been something that is suspected as a prevention to SIDS. So if they seem like they're not breathing well, then they will wake up due to this protective arousal. However, for adults and for younger children who are no longer in that phase where SIDS is a high risk, if they are waking frequently from something like this, this is unhealthy. So some things to look at. Is your child snoring or is your child mouth breathing? If your child snores or mouth breathes frequently, this is a red flag to go to your pediatrician, go to an ENT, go to a sleep specialist. Talk to them and make sure that there are no underlying medical issues that are preventing your child from sleeping well. What happens when we snore or mouth breathe, generally, it means that we have large tonsils or large adenoids that could be obstructing our air passageway. And so when we snore or when we're having to mouth breathe, this is often a sign that we are possibly not getting into that deeper sleep phase. So your child, even though they might not call out for you, if they are snoring or mouth breathing, there's a chance that they are not getting good quality sleep at night, and then they're still going to be tired regardless of how much sleep they get. And the third reason, or third normal waking, kind of like I mentioned, is your child's inability to fall asleep on their own and transition between sleep cycles. This is going to be something that causes fragmented sleep, not allowing for that consolidated good quality sleep if your child is not able to transition smoothly. So if this is you, if this is your family, this is the main thing I help with. This is where sleep training comes into place. This is where figuring out a plan to help your child learn how to fall asleep on their own and learn how to make that transition is going to be helpful. Because when they have those wakings between sleep cycles that are normal for everyone, they are going to quickly fall back to sleep and they might not even fully wake up. However, if they need assistance to fall back asleep, that's when they fully wake up and have a hard time falling back. Okay, so the fourth thing I talked about, the fourth element, is timing of sleep or sleep schedule. And I talked about this on March 4th in case you want to go back to that video. So some takeaways from that is, one, remember that for newborns, sleep is not yet organized. So we are not going to have a set schedule for a newborn. That is normal. Sleep is not yet organized. The night sleep becomes organized first around 6 weeks, and then around 16 weeks is when daytime sleep becomes more organized. So you will, for those first 16 weeks, you're going to use wake windows, meaning you're going to pay attention to how long your child has been awake. If your child has been awake for about 45 minutes for those first 6 weeks, generally they're ready to go back down after 45 minutes. So instead of looking at, okay, what time is it on the clock, we're going to look at how long has my child been awake. Around 6 weeks, that wake window will start to lengthen to about an hour and a half, and it will remain there until about 16 weeks. Around 16 weeks, we will notice that that wake window is going to start extending to about 2 hours. So this means that regardless if our child is showing sleepy cues or tired signs, we want to get them down prior to that time. So we want to try not to exceed the 45 minutes early on for newborns. We want to try to not exceed an hour and a half for the further stage of the newborns and not exceed 2 hours until about 6 months to 8 months when that schedule is really developed. So there's a little bit of a gray area there. Between 4 to 6 months, we're going to kind of have to pay attention to both. We're going to have to pay attention to wake windows while also paying attention to what schedule is unfolding. Like I mentioned, I'm going to start talking about the science of sleep in the next few weeks. That is going to help you understand all of this even more. But basically what happens is your child's circadian rhythm and their brain is becoming way more developed than it was as a newborn. And so that is going to affect them having more of a set schedule being beneficial for them rather than the wake windows. Around 6 to 8 weeks or 6 to 8 months, this is when the schedule becomes more set. This is when we want to pay attention instead of to wake windows, what we refer to as biotimes. So biological times, meaning the time on the clock that is best for your child to sleep. Generally, that's somewhere between around 9 a.m. for the AM nap and somewhere between 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. for the PM nap. And then we'll talk about naps in just a moment. I'm jumping the gun here. But this is the time when between 4 to 6 months when the sleep is going to develop more, sleep pressure is going to be important to pay attention to, and the circadian rhythm. Again, going to dive into that all over the next couple of weeks. All right, so then the fifth element that I talked about was naps. I talked about that last week on March 11th. It is important that you understand that naps are just as important as bedtime. Each nap is important, and each nap has its own purpose. So it is really important to preserve naps as best you can. Naps often are seen as unnecessary. There's something that gets pushed to the side, like, oh, I can go run this errand, or I'm going to meet up with friends, and we're just going to push through not having this nap. If that happens occasionally, just expect your child's going to have a rough day, but they can bounce back. But if this is happening over and over and over again, you're going to start the snowball effect of an overtired child. So naps need to be a priority. Back to the newborns. Prior to 16 weeks, there's no set schedule. Naps are important, but we're not expecting any particular pattern. That will start to develop over time between 4 to 6 months. Around 4 to 6 months, you can expect 3 to 4 naps, with the first 2 naps being the longest, and the last 1 or 2 nap being cat naps. So they are about 30 to 45 minutes. I don't expect those to be very long. Then around 6 to 9 months, as the schedule becomes even more set, you can expect 2 to 3 naps. So between 6 to 9 months, I would expect that cat nap to drop. So your child is going to drop that cat nap, being able to stay awake longer between PM and bedtime, that PM nap and bedtime. So they're going to go down to 2 naps. You can expect to stick with a 2 nap schedule until your child is between 15 to 18 months old. I highly suggest holding on to both naps until at least 15 months old. Once your child reaches that age, they will drop to 1 nap and eventually drop to no naps around 3.5 to 4 years of age. Once your child drops that nap, expect them to need quiet time. So that is a recap of the past 5 weeks. And now I'm going to go over the main takeaways as we look at all of these together instead of individually. So the main takeaway, the big one that I want you to know, is that you have an impact on your child's sleep. You are in control. You are the parent. You understand what your child needs. This is why understanding all of this is helpful, because it helps you reason and understand why we need to help children get the sleep they need when they need it. Excuse me. So just keep that in mind. You are the parent. No, you don't have control over whether or not your child falls asleep. You cannot force your child to fall asleep. However, you can create habits and you can create an environment. And you can put all of these things into place that make it much easier for your child. So with that in mind, number 1, treat sleep like you would food. You feed your child when they're hungry. Let your child sleep when they are tired. Try to provide it to them at a time before they reach being overtired and at the time that they would normally need to sleep. So also think of food, I mentioned this in the last 2 lives, and I love this analogy, is that you wouldn't want to give your child junk food all the time. You want nutritious, healthy food for your child. It is the same for sleep. If your child is sleeping at the right time, if your child is getting the right duration, your child is going to get good quality sleep. But if our children are napping on the go, if they are not sleeping when they need to, even if they sleep for a good duration, they're going to get junk sleep. It's not going to be as good quality sleep as if it was at the right time of day due to that sleep pressure and circadian rhythm that I have discussed. And again, we'll be diving more into in the future. One of my favorite topics. So treat sleep like you would food. Number 2, be your child's timekeeper. Let your child sleep when they are tired, but also consider your child's biological clock. We want to make sure that we keep them on a schedule. To help establish a healthy sleep schedule, you're going to want to pay attention to the clock and make sure that we have them down at the appropriate time so that they can fall asleep smoothly for naps and for bedtime. The only time that we want to wake a child is to help keep their schedule on track. So that will be a time, and this is when you are your child's timekeeper, when you're putting them down and when you need to wake them in order to keep them on track. Number 3, sleep will contribute to the following for your child. We want to keep in mind why we do this, why it's important. Whether or not your child gets the right amount, the right kind of sleep is going to affect your child's temperament, your child's ability to adapt, your child's attention span, and ability to focus, ability to learn, ability to remember and to recall, your child's ability to regulate emotions. When they are lacking sleep, these things are lacking. When they get good sleep, we see this improving. So I included a document on all the red flags to know if your child is overtired, and it has a lot to do with these things. What is their temperament like? I will provide that link at the end of this, but that is something to keep in mind, is that if you know what to look for, you can adjust your child's schedule based on what's needed. Number 4, preserve sleep. Preserve all sleep. Preserve bedtime, preserve naps. So if you can, don't skip naps. Adjust your schedule to help your child. So if you're meeting with friends, Can you meet at a time when your child doesn't need a nap? Can you meet if your child is currently still having a cat nap? Can you meet later in the afternoon for the nap that is not as restorative as that AM and PM nap? Does your hair appointment or the doctor's appointment, does it have to be right in the middle of a nap, or can that be adjusted? When you are running errands, can you shorten the things of the list of things you need to do so that you're not out as long and you can be back? Like, think outside the box, be a little bit creative. And sometimes it's just minor adjustments that can help us make sure that our child's naps and bedtime are kept in mind while we are living life. Number 5, again, I mentioned this, but know what signs might suggest an adjustment for your child's sleep. So this is what I mentioned with knowing if your child's overtired. If you go to afterthestorksleep.com/elements of healthy sleep, when you sign up for that, you will get a list of the 5 elements that I've discussed over the past 5 weeks and briefly explained, and you will get a bonus document of what red flags to look for to know that your child is overtired. Please note that if you have an overtired child, they may not appear to be tired. What will happen naturally with a lot of loss of sleep is the central nervous system will be more aroused. And when that happens, we become hyperactive. We become wired. It makes it difficult to pick up on those tired signs. So if your child seems like a child who, they just don't need that much sleep, I guarantee you your child needs more sleep and they are currently overtired because they are not getting enough sleep. So if that is you, again, feel free to reach out. We can schedule a phone call to discuss your situation. You can go to afterthestorksleep.com/book online. We can schedule a 15-minute phone call to discuss your situation, how I can help you, and maybe see if there's a way we can work together in order to help your child sleep better. I hope that you all are enjoying these videos, that you're finding them informative. Feel free to send me messages to let me know how it's going. If you think I could make adjustments somewhere, or if there's something you really like that I'm doing, I would appreciate, the feedback to know whether or not these are beneficial for you. And because I want to provide content that you find valuable. So again, I will be going over the science of sleep. In the next few weeks, we are going to start touching on the circadian rhythm, sleep pressure, so the 2 main systems in our bodies that help regulate sleep. We're going to dive into those. And then we're going to talk about the architecture of sleep cycles. So we're going to discuss deep sleep, REM sleep, what those look like, why they're each important, and when do they occur. So trust me, this is going to help you understand the sleep development of your child, and it will help you understand what's going on with your child if you're struggling. When I do these with workshops, I get to see the parents have those aha moments. So I hope that by doing this, by providing these lives, you are experiencing the same. If there are any questions, feel free to type below. I appreciate everyone who has joined me. I'm going to give a few minutes because I know there's some lag time on here. Any questions from anyone? So remember, you are your child's timekeeper. You are in charge. You know what your child needs. For preschoolers especially, you're in charge. They are not the ones running the household. Yes, you can make them feel like they're in control, but you are the one ultimately in control. So help your child get the sleep that they need by using these resources that I provided you and reaching out if need be. I hope you all have a great day, and I will see you next week at 1 p.m.